Charles Joachimsen!
Charles Verden, en podcast som vil inspirere deg. Da vil jeg ønske dere alle sammen hjertelig velkommen til en ny episode av Charles Verden. Denne gangen har jeg fått internasjonalt besøk, og ingen andre ringere enn Ty Lopez. Og nå skal jeg introdusere han på engelsk, og det her har jeg gledet meg til veldig, veldig. Så dette her blir bra. Nå skjønner han ikke hva jeg sier, men han smiler. He's smiling. He don't understand what I'm saying, but he's smiling. Okay, guys, here it goes. Today's guest is a true self-made entrepreneur who built his success from the ground up. Ty Lopez is widely recognized for his powerful insights on personal growth, leadership, and business, and his ability to turn challenges into opportunities. With over 1.4 billion views on YouTube and millions of followers on social media, Ty has inspired people all over the world with his journey and lessons learned along the way. So I'm so excited to have you here in the studio with me,
Thanks.
Ty, and
Thanks.
wow, thank you for making the time.
No problem. Thanks for flying to Stockholm.
Yes, of course, I had to.
Windy flight.
It was a windy flight.
I
yeah,
was
it
out recording at the lake here, and it was like, phew. I have Itzel with some of my staff with me. She's from Mexico. She cannot handle the cold. If it's like 19 Celsius is cold for her. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
We made it here. We made it here.
That's the important part.
We have so many listeners to this episode, and I want to bring it all back so people get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
And I mean, you have a name that's known all around the world, but now I'm talking to the people that don't know you.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your story? Where did your life start?
My life started long ago. It was a dark place, and I was born. I was born in Los Angeles. In a place called Long Beach, kind of the poor part of Los Angeles. My dad was in prison actually when I was born.
Wow, really?
He was a drug dealer. My dad's from Harlem, New York. He grew up very poor. And so, yeah, my mom always tells me the story. She's like, before you were born, she said, Ty, you should have been born in New York. I said, well, why was I born in Los Angeles? She said, well, one day I was asleep. She was married to my dad, and the door got kicked down, and the FBI came in with guns and took my dad away. And she's like, well, that's when I knew my life would be different. And he got there's an island prison off Los Angeles called Terminal Island. So I didn't really grow up with my dad. I have a few pictures on my Instagram. My baby pictures are visiting him in prison. He got it big and strong. So my mom was a single mom. She moved back with her parents, so I was raised by my grandpa and grandma. And my dad's side of the family and my mom's side of the family were very different. My mom's side of the family was professors at university, and my dad's was like a street guy from Harlem. So, that was my upbringing. Eventually, I became an entrepreneur. Yeah, so I've been an adventurer in this world. I became an entrepreneur. I didn't have a dad. That's probably where I got very focused on finding mentors. I always say you gotta take in America we say, when life gives you lemons, you gotta figure out how to turn it into lemonade. Mm-hmm. Take something bad and turn it into something sweet. So I think growing up, I wanted a father figure. So when I was a teenager still, after high school, instead of going to university, I went and worked on this farm for a guy named Joel Salatin. Now, back then, he was kind of famous. Now, he's become the most famous farmer in the world. He's kind of the father of sustainable organic agriculture. So I didn't realize it at the time, and I went and lived with him. He gave me a little building in the back of his farm with no toilet. He cut a hole in the floor and put a bucket underneath, and he goes, there you go. No heat. In the winter, it would get so cold, I would sleep in 2 sleeping bags, and then my water next to me would turn frozen, and he paid me 300 US a month. I think that's 3,000 NOK, and I would work, and but it was worth it. I learned work ethic, and he was kind of a father figure, and he's well known also for marketing. So it was the beginning of that marketing world. Up to that point, after my mom got remarried when I was 8 years old. My dad had been married 6 times.
Oh, really?
So I have 6 half brothers and 1 half sister.
Big family.
Big family. But my mom and dad only had me because my dad went to prison, and then they separated. And so I had a lot of brothers and sisters. I didn't have that happy of a childhood for a lot of reasons. But, once I was 18, I left home right away. I was like, I grew up in a mobile home. I graduated high school living in a mobile home in North Carolina, and didn't know what I was going to do, and I ended up on this farm. So I was there for 18 months. That taught me work ethic, taught me the power of marketing, and it also taught me a lot about agriculture. So I still have farms.
Really?
I actually looked at buying a farm in Norway.
Oh,
Norway
you
has
should.
special laws. You have to live on your farm. It's interesting. You can't, like in America, I have 2 big farms near Washington, D.C. I have farm managers. Norway doesn't like that. So
They don't like it.
No, I have a Norwegian lawyer, and I was looking at buying a farm, and he's like, and plus Norway has complicated tax law now. So anyway, maybe in Sweden. I live also in Denmark and Sweden, so I've looked at farms here. But so I learned a lot about how to, my first business I built with Joel Salatin, which was a grass-fed beef business.
Oh.
So I built a business. It was the first time I ever made profit. He put the money in. We bought a whole bunch of cows on a neighbor's farm. We rented it out. And at the end of the year, I made $12,000 profit. I remember he wired me $12,000. He owned 60% of the company, and I owned whatever 40. And that was the most money I'd ever seen. 12,000
Wow.
US. I was like, I'm set for life, because I had been making $300 a month. So that was the beginning, and I never really got a job from that day. 19 years old, I've always owned my own businesses. I lived with the Amish after that for 2.5 years. I don't
How
know
was
if you-
that?
That was great. No electricity, no refrigerator, no car. I had
Nothing?
well, the Amish. I don't know if you ever seen the
Yeah.
Amish. They live very old
Yeah.
fashioned. I had 7 horses. I had an organic tomato growing business. And there I made $18,000. But the thing at the Amish, you have no expenses. They made my clothes for me. So I remember my annual clothing cost was $40 because you just got to buy the fabric and they sew it for you. Clothing, like people think Zara, H&M, is cheap clothing. I'm like, no. What's cheap is buy the fabric and get somebody to sew it. I still have my Amish pants. I
You
gotta
have
wear
it?
them sometimes. Yeah, I got them in my closet.
Amazing.
And they're so thick. They still. And by the way, when you get a hole in them, you don't throw them away. Amish don't throw them away. They put a patch on it.
Always.
That costs 10 cents. They're like, you
Amazing.
need a patch? Here you go. So from the Amish, I learned how to work together. The Amish are, they're kind of capitalist, but they're also a little bit like Scandinavians. They also speak German. So I'm half German. My mom is German, and my dad was from Spain and Puerto Rico. So, so that's a little bit of background about
Wow,
me. Yeah.
and now you're sitting here and you built your own brand on your name, and you made waves all around the world. And that's why I want to tap into now is how did your journey as an entrepreneur begin? I know you did a TED Talk.
Yeah.
You also have a YouTube that went viral, like
Yes.
totally viral.
Yeah.
What happened?
So yeah, in 2009, I was like, this personal brand thing's going to be a big deal. I was on a TV show in 2007 in LA. It was called Millionaire Matchmaker. It was like a reality show. And my episode became the second most watched episode in America. So I saw the power of like going viral, but that was TV. So TV is not as good as social media, because social media, you don't need anybody's permission to post.
True.
Anybody can make an Instagram and YouTube and post, and if it goes viral, you don't have to wait for a TV producer. You don't have to audition. So a couple years later, 2009, I actually found the first video. I'm with my friend Zach. A lot of people who follow me on social media remember Zach, but he died of cancer last year. It was a crazy, sad
Sorry.
story. But 2009, I found in my iPhone memories the other day. We were at a comedy club on Sunset Boulevard, Laugh Factory, and I go, "Hey Zach, there's a new app here from YouTube. I can just shoot this video right here and upload it to my YouTube." That was 2009.
Wow.
So that's when I kind of started uploading. Then I did a TEDx talk that went very viral in 2013, 2014. And then I started doing paid ads. I built my first funnel in 2001. Okay.
Already?
Yeah, I built a funnel before anybody knew what a funnel was. I bought a course for $300, all my money. I remember I was, after the farm, I came back to the city and I was super depressed because I had no skills. I knew how to milk a cow. I knew how to harness a horse. I knew how to, build a log house, but I didn't have any practical skills. So I ended up with sleeping on a couch in a mobile home in North Carolina, and I had $47 in my bank account. And and all my friends had gone to university. One of my friends was making $200,000 a year, and I had nothing. And I remember thinking to myself, I think I missed out on life. Like I'd made the wrong choice going on the farm. So my mom gave me this book by Tony Robbins, self-help guy.
Oh, yes.
And
Which book?
It was called, I think it was Awaken the Giant Within.
Yeah.
And there's one sentence in that book, I remember it. He said, when you succeed, you party. But when you fail, you ponder, you think deeply. And all greatness comes from thinking. And so what I realized was, okay, yes, I feel like a failure now, but now I'm motivated to think very deeply. And I realized I needed a mentor. So I was online on Google and I saw an advertisement, and it was I'll never forget, it was a guy laying on a beach chair like this, and the ad said how I made $28,000 laying on the beach in Hawaii yesterday. And I remember thinking, this is probably a scam, but I was like, you can't scam me because I don't have any money. I was like, there's nothing to scam. You can't get scammed.
You were
when you're
already broke.
I was like, I'm already broke. So I clicked it, and it was before video was big. It was just a long, like, blog page. And I read the whole thing. And he's like, hi, my name's Corey Rudel. I live in San Diego, California, and I'm an internet marketer. And I'll teach you how you can use the internet to generate income. And I was like, great. So I clicked the button, and I remember it was $300. At that time, I had just saved like $400 by that time.
Used all of them.
And and it had an upsell on it. And I took the upsell, and it was like all my money. And I was like, I hope this isn't a scam.
Wow.
And 2 weeks later, a week later, a box came. Inside of it was a folder. It wasn't even an internet course. It was, I read the whole thing.
Folder?
But it said, do Google ads. It was new. Google ads were new, 2 months old. And I got in. Within 9 months, I went from making zero money. I was making about 8 to 12,000 US on autopilot, just like.
Wow.
And so it changed my life. I never looked back since then. So, in my story as an entrepreneur, I learned never be too cynical, never be too skeptical. Don't worry about being scammed. Most of life is already a scam. Coca-Cola is the biggest scam in the world. McDonald's is a scam. People pay them to poison themselves. So I learned to invest in myself, and I never look back. I've had an online business. It gives me freedom. I'm here in Sweden. I live in California. I have a farm, and I live in Scandinavia. So life of freedom.
Wow, that's an inspiring story. I mean, you've been through it all. And so where did it go from there? Because you started to consume a lot of personal development.
Yes.
You started reading books, did you?
Yep.
And I mean, I think I heard somewhere that you read one book a day.
Yes.
Is that even possible? I mean,
Yes.
what have books done for you?
Yeah, I always say a book is the easiest way. You can download 20 years of a person's experience and brain right into your brain. And you can read books, and depends how fast you read, 2 to 6 hours, you can read a book that took somebody a lifetime to figure out. So, yeah, I read. I travel with an assistant. They keep like 10 books next to my bed. So what I like to do now, sometimes I'll read just one book, but I like to read 2 or 3 books. I'm reading a very interesting history book right now. It's one of the best books I've read in a long time. I'll have to put the link in the show notes. It's just on all the U.S. presidents, but behind the scenes of their stories. So I like to read. I don't think there's any faster way to get smart. And at the end of the day, in the modern world, you get paid in proportion to the difficulty of problems that you can solve. So if you know nothing, you can't solve hard problems and you'll never make money. A lot of people think the world's unfair, and it is. I mean, there's a lot of unfair things in the world. 10 men right now on the Forbes list, the top 10 men, they have a higher net worth than the bottom 4 billion people all combined.
Wow.
So, of course, that's unfair. But in the modern economy, you get paid to know things. So to me, books, I can also tap into the mind of somebody who's dead. You're never going to be able to meet Einstein, but earlier this year, I just read Einstein's general theory of relativity. You can read directly. It's funny, in school they teach us about Einstein, but they never just have us read his book. He wrote a book that's this thin called The General Theory of Relativity. So I also like books to get direct access to the most influential people in history. Sigmund Freud, Nietzsche, Aristotle, Socrates, Einstein, Stephen Hawking. I don't like to have other people try to summarize the smartest people on earth. They're never as good. Like, I've had people tell me, oh, Sigmund Freud is a fraudulent, not very smart psychologist. Have you ever read Sigmund Freud? If you read Civilization is Discontents, of all the people I've ever read, he's the smartest person he's the most profound person. So I tell people, read the books directly, make your own opinion. Don't listen to professors. Professors sometimes are as lost as everybody else, so I like books to get to the original source too.
Oh, that's amazing. And yeah, I get inspired by listening to you. But only listening to you, I choose which book. Give us top 3 books you recommend.
I have a free page on my website, tylopez.com/books. I don't sell anything there. You can just go there, and I have the top 100 books I recommend people read. I think number 1 book, I have a book called Managing Oneself. It's a teeny book by Peter Drucker. He's considered maybe the best, business professor of the last 50 years. And he wrote a simple book on managing yourself, how to manage your time, be disciplined, how to build on your strengths. It's a really small book. And so I recommend everybody start with that book. There's another good book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. It's he built $1 billion real estate agency in the U.S. And the book's on the power of focus. Right now, everything makes us distracted. The average person sees over 10,000 advertisements per day. The average American, but I think it's actually global, but the average American, a goldfish has a 6-second attention span, scientists say. The average American now has a 5-second one. So goldfish can focus more than humans now. So the second book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, is just a powerful book on how you should figure out the one thing in your life that if you fix that, like dominoes, how do you say dominoes?
Yeah, same.
So like, what's the one domino that knocks down 20 other dominoes? So the power of focus. And the third book I mentioned, Sigmund Freud's book, Civilization and Its Discontents. He wasn't a perfect psychologist, but that book is the most profound book on happiness. The second chapter, it's just a short chapter, and it's the theories of happiness, what makes humans happy. And I've never read a book. I've read most of the philosophers, most of the religions, Eastern religions, Buddha, Jesus Christ. All these people wrote great things, but Sigmund Freud's book on happiness is 20 times more profound.
That's amazing, because now I want to ask you, what is the key to happiness in your opinion, based on all the books you read, all the people you met? I mean, when is people really happy?
So, okay, I'm going to give you a controversial answer.
Okay.
Based on modern scientists. Even though I like the old people like Sigmund Freud, one of my mentors is Dr. David Buss, who's considered probably the #1 living evolutionary psychologist. He's founded the department at Harvard. He was a professor at Harvard. He wrote a book called Evolutionary Psychology. It's a thick book. Everybody should read. That's the 4th book to read. The question of what's the one thing that makes everybody happy. Both Sigmund Freud 100 years ago and Harvard scientists now said it's different for different people. So I own a psychology company, and I built a quiz. It's called The 4 Motivations. It's on 12types.com. It's a free quiz. I don't make any money off it. Maybe I make a little. They have a premium version for $1.
Yeah.
But if you take the 4 Motivations quiz, it's 4 M's of motivation. So material things, mating, love, movement, freedom, and mastery, status. So most humans, based on your genetics and your environment, you are more motivated by one thing. For me, it's easy. I'm the most motivated by movement, freedom. So if you gave me a choice, Ty, I'll send you $1 billion, but you have to work a 9-to-5 job for the next 10 years. Or you can make $200,000 a year, travel the world, live on your own schedule. Because my genetics and my brain is so interested in movement and freedom, I would choose less money. But I know I had a business partner. He was very focused. I said to him once, "What's your goals in life?" He's like, "Money." I'm like, "How much?" He's like, "I'll only be happy if I'm number 1 or number 2 richest guy in the world." So for him, actually, you would think it was material things, but for him, it was status.
Oh, really?
Mastery. He wanted to be known as the master of money. Now, I know I have another friend who loves things. For example, if you grew up liking to collect things, a lot of times you're more motivated by material things. I have a friend I do a party once every month, every 2 months in Beverly Hills where I live. And I have a friend who comes to that. He's a very wealthy guy. He was the largest shareholder of Grand Theft Auto, the video game.
Oh, really?
That's, anyway, he has a 40-car garage with 40 cars in it. He loves material things. He likes to touch his car. And, you can make fun of somebody like that, but it's very genetic. And so I think you have to figure out which of the 4 motivations, without any guilt, matches you. So my number 1 is movement, freedom. My least is material things. I like some material things, but I don't like jewelry. I like nice houses because I'm a social person. So I have big house because I do 600 people parties once a month or once every other month at my house. But I'm not that materialist. I also like my farm where I live in a little log house, Norwegian style.
Yeah.
But I have friends that are the opposite. So I think modern geneticists have found that there's clusters of genes of 30 or 40 genes that really determine whether you're more into material things. And some people are motivated. I have a friend motivated just by mating. He always my friend Joey, he got married. He's like, "I want to get married and have a big family." He doesn't care that much about money. He doesn't like to travel, so freedom's not important. And he doesn't want to be well known. He doesn't care about mastery status. He just, and he got married to his high school sweetheart. First girlfriend, they got married. They're still happily married. He has 4 kids. So to him, he is happy with his life. I wouldn't be happy with that life, and he wouldn't be happy with my life. So there's a different formula for different people. But I don't think there's hundreds of, some people say everybody's happy in different ways. Not really. 4 main motivations. There's not 7,000 motivations to humans. Humans are not that unique. We think we're unique. We're not that unique.
I follow you on that one.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to bring it to the next. You had talked about before exchanging life
Yes.
with another person.
Yes.
Can you go deep in that? Because that gave me so much.
You mean with love?
No, exchange life with another person.
Oh, the exchange test.
Yeah, the exchange test. Yes, that's one.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. And I
Yes.
mean, can you get a little bit into that one?
Sure. So one of the ways to figure out what you should do in life and to figure out who you should listen to. Because I always say that the 3 most important decisions you'll ever make in your life. Number 1, who you have kids with. Okay? 3 most important decisions you'll ever make. Number 1, who you have kids with. Number 2, your career and how you make money. But number 3 is who you listen to. You listen to the wrong person, it'll throw off your whole life. I'm very picky who I listen to. So one of the ways I decide who I listen to is called the exchange test. Not the richest person, not the prettiest person, not the person with the most material things, not the person with the most followers. Whose life, if I had to trade my life and live inside of somebody else's body, who would I exchange for? So for me, I've been in business with 3 guys on the Forbes list, 3 billionaires, Forbes list billionaires. I respect them. I wouldn't want to be any of them.
No.
I think exchange test, maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger. He lived a great life.
All
the
the
four
movies.
pillars of the good life. But also he got health.
Yeah.
He's like one of the founders of modern day people going to the gym. So he has health,
Hmm.
wealth. I think he's worth 500 million US, 5 billion NOK for you Norwegians.
Yeah.
Love, friends, family, romance. Yeah, he was divorced, but he has I'm in business, in one of his son's businesses, Patrick.
Hmm.
His kids love him, so he has a lot of love. I used to go to his birthday party. I've been a couple times. He has his old friends like from childhood still around him. Arnold Schwarzenegger has a lot of love, and he's a very happy guy, at least from what I can see. So to me, Arnold Schwarzenegger got everything. So, I think, now that doesn't mean in real life I'd exactly want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I use people like that as like a compass, like a compass if you're camping,
Yeah.
north, south, west, east. You have to have a compass, and it's good to base your compass on other people. I also find it would exchange for super interesting intellectual people. I like to read. I would exchange with like maybe Albert Einstein. He was this crazy mad scientist who came up with, people don't understand. Einstein came up with some of the most important theories. Not just, people don't understand what E equals MC squared means. One thing that E equals MC squared means, it means that time's not real. It means that time's a dimension that can be warped, by mass. And so I think it'd be interesting to have been, Albert Einstein. I think it'd be interesting to be a king. In Sweden, there was a famous king, King Gustav. You guys had, what was the famous king in Norway? Håkon or
Harald
Magnus
Hårfagre.
too. King
yeah.
Magnus.
Mm.
I would like to be like 1,000 years ago, be King Magnus and
That would
just
fit
see
you
what.
nice.
Yeah, but
A
although
Viking king.
the truth is, everybody on Earth now is richer than any king 500 years ago because they didn't have antibiotics.
Wow.
Half their kids died when they were born. So in the modern world, everybody complains. But actually, if you could exchange with anybody in history, you'd probably exchange with somebody alive now. Even the poorest person in Scandinavia is richer than King Magnus was. I think King Magnus was 1,000 years ago or 700 years ago, So even though you do the exchange test, also there's power in being grateful for what you have now.
Mm.
You gotta juggle it. You wanna, because envy, wanting what other people have, is a double-edged sword. Sometimes it's good for you, but Charlie Munger, the billionaire, says of all the deadly sins, envy is the only one that's not fun when you're doing it, right? Adultery is fun, at least when you're doing it. Murder can be fun when you're doing it if the other person pissed you off enough. But he's like, envy is not that fun. So do the exchange test, but don't envy other people. Yeah.
Amazing. I want to bring to the next, because in the TED Talk you talk about the law of 33%.
Yes.
That's really, can you go deep into that one? Because
Yeah.
everybody should hear this and listen. This is, I don't know if I've been living like that, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's why I'm hanging with you.
There you go.
33%. Okay.
Yeah, I always say, so when you think about, everybody is awake about 16 hours a day. Let's say you got, 2 or 3 hours, you got to do personal stuff, brush your teeth, eat food, blah, blah, blah. You got, let's say, 12 productive hours every day. The sun's been rising and setting on everybody about the same, gives you 12 productive hours. The law of 33% says you should spend 1/3 of your life with people less skilled than you. You can help them. So like if you're an entrepreneur, a lot of times your employees are not as skilled as you, right? So you spend 1/3 of the day with people that you're more the boss. Then you need to spend 1/3 of your day around people who are equal to you. Those become your best friends, your peers. Those are the people you really have friendships with. But the other 1/3 of your life, and this is the hardest part, is with people that are 20 years ahead of you, where you want to be in 20 years. So those are your mentors. And a lot of people I meet, they're like, hey, Ty, my business is doing $1 million a year or whatever. and I'm stuck. Or they're broke and they're stuck. Or even they're wealthy. There's a guy I was talking to. I do a private mentor program where I mentor CEOs and stuff that are very advanced. I was just talking to a guy, and he came to my place in Beverly Hills. He's got 50 million US in the bank, 500 million NOK. And he's like, I'm not happy at all. He's like, I'm stuck. You know, he's like, I don't have freedom. He's a big real estate guy. So he's like, I can't travel. Blah, 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 blah. And I said, law of 33%. You need to be around people who are ahead of you, who already who have more than 50 million or have the life that you want. And he said, yeah, I don't spend time around anybody. I'm the most advanced person I know. So when you start taking that mentality, you unlock life very fast.
Wow. It's like tapping into the persons, not only the books, but to other people that's 20 years ahead of you.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're
But
20
they have to be
years
20 years ahead where you want to be. By the way, sometimes they're younger than you. So let's say if your 20-year plan, you're like, oh, I'm living like this. This is how much money I have. This is how much freedom I have. Sometimes they can be they don't have to be 20 years older than you. They just have to have the life that you want to have in the future.
So first of all, you need to figure out what you want.
Yeah, that's the most people don't. Peter Drucker says most people think they know what they're good at. Most people are wrong. Most people think they know their weaknesses. Even then, most people are wrong than right. But you can only build off strength. So it's true. That's a whole nother thing. Very few people. Just look at, like in America, for every 1,000 people who go to university and get a degree, only 27% ever use that degree. So they get a degree in English and then they go into business. They get a degree in business and then they go into, poetry life or become a poet. So most people, it's a big scam because in America, university is very expensive. My brother went for a Spanish degree, 4 years, $80,000 of debt. He still can't speak Spanish. I'm like, you need to get your money back, bro.
Oh, my God.
But I'm just saying, he didn't know who he was and what he wanted. And that's a whole nother trick, how you figure that out.
Ow.
Your life only begins the day you figure out what you were built for, And I think it's partly genetic, too. I think genetics is a very underrated conversation because a lot of people are afraid of eugenics, sounding like Adolf Hitler, things like that. But genetics is the most powerful force on earth for humans that nobody will talk about is genetics. We know eye color is genetic. We know how tall you are is genetic. How intelligent you are is genetic. But it's interesting. If you ask ChatGPT, is there anything in your personality that's not genetic? It'll say no. Really? Every part of if you're a generous person, if you are easily to forgive, or you remember every wrong somebody's ever done to you, genetic. Alcoholism or addiction is 60 to 70% genetic. If you're a narcissist, is 68% heritability, genetic. For every 1,000 people, you can predict 68% of the likelihood they'll be narcissist just from their parents and grandparents. That's why I tell people one way to figure out what you should do, study your ancestors, not just your parents and grandparents. Go further because you are 50% the same as each of your parents. You're 25% the same as each of your 4 grandparents, but you're 12.5% as each of your great-grandparents. And it just keeps going. So, you're about 6% as your great-great. And so if you're as equally related to all your great-grandparents together as you are to your parents. So I think you can use your ancestors for a clue. It's interesting. In this president book I'm reading today, Richard Nixon comes from the same family line as Bill Gates.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, the amount of people, listen to this. Michael Jackson, okay, one of the most talented musicians. His cousin is Stevie Wonder, one of the most talented singers of all time.
Wow.
Who's the other one? Tracy Chapman? I think Tracy Chapman is, I forget the other one, but multiple of Samuel L. Jackson, the actor, is a cousin. So I think it's a big mistake that modern world has stopped talking about genetics. I think it's insane. I think our grandchildren will look back and be like, Grandpa, Grandma, were you guys stupid in 2024? Just like we look back at the 1800s, where if you were sick, they'd be like, well, we got to cut your veins so more blood will come out, right? That's what they used to do. And we look back and we laugh at them. 100 years from now, our great grandkids will be like, you didn't know it was genetic? I predict in under 5 years, maybe 10 years, you're going to go on a Tinder date, okay? You're going to swipe your mouth like this, and you'll know if you're compatible. You don't even have to meet.
Wow.
You can also take your children. You'll be able to swipe their mouth when they're born. It'll be able to deconstruct their DNA, and it'll say, this kid would love business. This kid will love art. Not everything's in your genes, just almost everything.
Then how can we change the path we're going in our life based on our family tree back?
Yeah.
Because some people, they're changing the family tree like poof. They do something different than the rest of the generations, and they change everything.
Yeah, but usually if you go back further, so people are like, I'm not like my mom or dad at all. I bet you're like your grandpa. And if you're not like your grandpa or grandma, I bet you like your great-great-grandparents. There's clues in there. Like I have a farm, okay, and I know humans hate to hear this because they think I'm calling humans cows, but we're mammals. Humans are mammals. I have cows on my farm. I have pigs. Chickens aren't mammals, right? They don't have live births. But for example, all the dairy cows in America that give milk are related to 5 bulls, 5 males. All the corn in America, the corn, that the plant, comes from like 2 or 3 cultivars, which is similar to genetics. So you go back far enough, you're very much like somebody. You're like your uncle. You're like, I look at my family. I'm actually, if you have a kid, if you have a baby, your own or brothers, it's funny. You look at a kid from one angle, they'll look like the mom. You look at another angle, you're like, looks like the dad. So genetics, the blending is so crazy. If I look at my life, I'm very much a blend of my mom's side and my dad's side. So my dad's side is not educated at all, like street guys. My dad's dad was a sailor. His parents were killed in Spain. He was an orphan. He got on a boat at 12 years old. Never went to junior high school. He dropped out because his parents were killed in the Spanish Revolution. And so my dad was a street guy. He grew up in Harlem. He was in the mob, like organized crime. He's a hustler. I'm a little bit of a hustler. I started with nothing. Sometimes my haters will be like, oh, I don't trust Ty. He's kind of like a hustler. I am a little bit of that. But then my mom's side is very much intellectuals. They like science. My grandfather, Martin Birkenrode, was a professor at Yale. He's a pretty famous scientist. He published in Nature. Like I have a side that likes books, that I'm more motivated by intellectual things actually than material things. People who know me well know that. And so I'm kind of a blend of those two. So I know people say, no, Ty, I'm not like my parents. I'll tell you my answer is what an Amish guy told me. Amish are very polite when they disagree with you. Amish says, if you don't mind, I don't believe you. So when people say, oh, I'm not like my genetics, I'm like, if you don't mind, I don't believe you at all.
Wow. And everything is, what you're saying now is connected to something that we have a common sense of sales, because everything we do, all the moves you do, all the people we talk with every single day is about sales in general.
Yes.
And you have been doing a lot of sales.
Yes.
And what does it take to become a great salesperson in today's world? It's not just about the sales pitch sales in general. What is your take on that?
Yeah, so I divide sales, the way I think about it, I call it the double P's. P. In America, a lot of guys are focused on the double D's. These are the double D's. I say forget the double D's, focus on the double P's, psychology and persuasion. So in business, the wealthiest people on earth, they're good at the double P's, psychology and persuasion. Richest man in the world right now, Elon Musk, $300 billion. He's persuaded people because he's a master of psychology. He's like a puppet master. By the way, big part of why Donald Trump's president, he was backed by one of the best marketers ever, Elon Musk. All of a sudden, Trump lost last time. He didn't have Elon Musk behind him. Now he gets Elon. So whether you like Donald Trump or not, it's not the powers that are running for president that determine who wins. It's the powers behind them. I saw a picture of Kamala Harris's marketing team. It was 12 people that were about 21 years old.
Really?
Not very experienced marketing team. They looked like they were still in high school or junior or college. You look at the powers behind Elon Musk. Joe Rogan, one of the great marketers of all time. Elon Musk. I'm like, who's going to win this? I'm betting on the powers behind Donald Trump. So by the way, if you ever don't want Donald Trump or Republicans to win, you better put more than 12 interns running the marketing team. By the way, Kamala Harris had something like $1 billion budget, and they ended up owing money to vendors. They spent it all, and I think Donald Trump spent $100 million, but he had more powerful marketers. So whatever you want in this world, you better be sure you're good at the double P's. Psychology, and then a subset of that is persuasion. And then below that, I divide my business into 14 divisions. I've had small companies where, me and an assistant. I've had medium-sized companies where 100 people work for me. And I've had large companies where I had 8,000 employees that reported to me and 500 million in revenue. And what I've seen in common is there's three main divisions in business having to do with psychology. In the modern world, there's branding. That's social media, organic branding. There's marketing. That's paid ads. And there's sales. That's your one-on-one sales on the phone or in person. But those three are all below psychology and persuasion. So first, psychology is the understanding of the triggers that make humans act. All humans think that they're acting out of their own free will. Very unlikely. I learn a lot from my farm. Last year I had 100 cows. Cows think they have free will, but if I want them to go in the barn, you put some hay down in the barn and you close the pasture so there's no grass out there. So there's pain here and there's reward here. And you know what? The cows all come in here. They're triggered by reward and avoiding pain. Well, guess what? If Elon Musk wants to sell more Teslas, he talks about the reward. My friend owns a Tesla. He said, Ty, my Tesla saves me $700 a month on gas. I love my Tesla. I charge it at home. My gas bill used to be $1,000 a month. Now it's $200 or $300. Reward, moving away from pain. Elon Musk now has a car company more valuable than 5 car companies added together.
Combined.
More than Ford, more than General Motors, more than Mercedes. I mean, and those companies have been around 100 years. His has been around 20. So you really need to psychology, what triggers humans. Then persuasion is how do you say it in a way that people will listen. And then you have 3 places to post that persuasive content. You can post it on your branding, which is organic social media, Reels, YouTubes, podcasts. You can run it as a paid ad, Facebook ads, YouTube ads. Or you can give it in a script for your phone team to call people and talk or knock on doors and talk to. But it's all a subset. That's why I say start with psychology, then move down to persuasion, and then you'll be good at branding, paid marketing, and phone sales.
Oh, great. That was a great take one. I think I have to rewind and listen to it
Rewind
a couple of times.
Speak slower.
It was really, it was really good, really good. I want to lead with the next one, and that's something you're probably the best in the world at, building a personal brand. And I mean, how do you approach building a personal brand that stands out in a crowded digital space? No matter where you are in the world right now, if you haven't started yet, let's talk to the people that they're trying to build their brand, but they haven't really done it yet. Even I'm trying to build my own brand.
Yes.
I get so inspired by you. But what's your takes on that one? To build a personal brand that stands out in the digital age we're now.
So to build a personal brand, first off, it is saturated. There's 5 million podcasts. When I started my podcast like in 2010, I thought I was too late. I remember being like, my cousin, I was like, Maya, I'm going to start a podcast, but I think there's too many people doing it. There was like 10,000 back then, but it felt. So first off, resist the temptation to think it's too late. It's not too late. It's actually, even though there's 5 million podcasts now, there's like 100 times more people listening to podcasts. So the market has gone up. The supply is higher, but so is the demand. So it's fine. Number 2, you can't be afraid of getting some hate.
Oh.
Like, you know, and I try to keep my hate ratio about 20%. So out of 100
Seriously?
people who listen to you, you want about 10 to 20 to be like people are going to listen to me talking about genetics. Trust me, they're going to be mad. I did a post that went crazy viral. I was talking about, you know, having children, and it got like 6 million views. It wasn't even on my account. I did a podcast, and 20% of people were writing me the meanest thing. One woman wrote me, she's like, you know nothing about science. She wrote me a DM this long. I was like,
Wow.
This lady, it was just, I was talking about male and female fertility rates for having children. I mean, I read this message. I said, this lady, I actually had to run it through ChatGPT. She was so persuasive that I'm like, is she right about the science? And it was like, no, actually, you're right about the science, but she's just mad at you. So you got to be okay with having some haters. I did this private mentor where I mentor, you know, entrepreneurs trying to build a personal brand. A guy called me. He's like, Ty, I can't handle the hate. He's like, how do you deal with this? I'm getting negative comments. So I asked him, I was like, oh, are you getting a lot? He's like, oh, yeah, a lot. And I was like, how many? He's like, I got 2 this month. I said, wait, 2 what? So I got 2 negative comments. I said, you know what? I don't think you should have a personal brand. Your skin, you got to have thick skin. This guy has such thin skin. Out of 100 comments or 1,000 comments, he got 2. And he needed a psychotherapist. You know, he needed cognitive behavioral therapy. Like, if that's you, build it what's called a community brand. The owner of CrossFit, he never put his face saying I'm the owner, but he made $1 billion company by letting other people post who are CrossFitters. So I tell people, if you're super introverted and sensitive, do not use your face for a personal brand. Build a community brand like CrossFit, okay? Mm-hmm. If you're like me, I'm an extrovert. You know, it does. I interviewed Rihanna once, and you know, Rihanna's like, I read all my negative comments, and I was thinking, there's a basketball player in America named LeBron James. He's like, the secret to my happiness is I don't read any comments, and I tell my friends, don't tell me anything negative people say. So another way to deal with hate is just be delusional, pretend everybody likes you, live in a fantasy world. But number 2, you're going to have some controversy. The, you know, most well-known personal brand in the world is Donald Trump. Nobody knows. There's no human more well-known than Donald Trump. Well, about 30% of people absolutely love him, and 33% of people despise him, and 33% of people are deciding which side they want to be on. And, you know, he seems to be doing okay. Kim Kardashian, you know. Now, the one way you can become a very big personal brand without having any hate, become Messi or Ronaldo. If you can play football, soccer, nobody talks. You know why nobody talks any shit about Ronaldo? If you leave a negative comment on Ronaldo, his fans might assassinate you. So people are so like Messi, you don't want to say anything bad about Messi, or they may find your house and blow you up. So everyone else that's trying to build a personal brand, you're going to reach a point. You know, Mr. Beast is a guy who's actually been through my programs, my 67 Steps program, and he now has the most YouTube followers of any human. When I first met him, he had 25 million followers, and he said, Ty, when you meet me next, I'll be the most followed person in the world. I'll have, what did he say, 200 million or something. Well, he's past that. And he makes videos about doing good deeds. He raises $10 million to give 100 blind people surgery to get their eyesight back. He builds 100 wells in Africa. People still find a reason to hate him. Oh, this guy's he's not a saint. Not everything. Nobody's a saint. So people are going to pick on you the larger your audience gets. So one thing you can do, my dad taught me this. Another way to have less hate is be a big fish in a small pond. Just pick a small niche. Don't become super well known, and you'll be fine. On the fame 1 to 10 scale, I tell most people, be a 7 or an 8. If you become a 10, you're going to become a lot. Trump is a 10. A 10, a 7, anywhere you go in the world, once a month, somebody will recognize you on the streets. That's a 7 of fame. If it's an 8 of fame, every day, anywhere you go in the world traveling, somebody will recognize you. If you are a 9, every hour, somebody will recognize you on the streets. If you're a 10, every minute. So I've been a 9. I've never been a 10. When I was really pushing my personal brand, I was, at one point, actually, I was the fastest growing Instagram channel in the world. I was growing 1 million followers, real followers, not fake followers, a month. I turned that off. I did not like it. Being a 9 or 10 is crazy. I had to have security at my house, and I still had a guy break in, a fan break in and go to prison. You know, I had a guy with a machine gun outside my house in Beverly Hills. Cost me $25,000 a month. He was a former Navy SEAL in the South African Army. We would do a gun of the day, very American, on my Snapchat. I had 2 attack German Shepherds. They only attacked the FedEx guy. They never attacked the people breaking into my house. I had people, we found out after, you know what's crazy? In that house, it was a big house, 17 bedrooms, 18 bathrooms. But I wasn't there all the time. I used it as an office. There was a guy, I don't know if you know this, Maya. I lived in Norway and Sweden. My brother would stay at my house when I was gone, my brother Jacob, and he would wake up super early at like 4:30 in the morning. He called me one time. He said, Ty, you know there's somebody living in the attic of your guest house? I said, what? He said, 2 nights in a row. When I wake up at 4:30, a guy comes out of the window, jumps over the fence, and I went up in there, and he has a whole apartment built in there. Yeah, we called the police. It was a Mexican guy who was like a construction worker. He never did any harm, but he was living in my house for the police estimated, by the way. He had like a little like microwave in there. He had a bed built, everything. He had snuck. So when you become too well known, you become a target. Mark Zuckerberg has a public filing of his accounting. He spent $14 million a year on personal security.
Wow.
Elon Musk now says he has he has more security than the president of the United States. So really what you want to be is a 7 or an 8 of fame. That's the perfect, like if I have great grandkids, be like, Grandpa Ty, how famous should I be? I'd be like, are you an introvert? Okay, then be a 7. Are you an extrovert? Then be an 8. Because if I have introverted great grandkids, I'll say, remember, the world does not reward overly shy people. So nobody can be a 5 or a 6. Be a 7. You'll get most rewards at 7 or 8. And then the after you hit a 9, you'll start getting punishment for being a 9. Be a big fish in a small pond or a big fish in a medium pond. You don't want to be a big fish. Donald Trump's a big fish in a big pond. And he gets people shooting at him, not ideal.
So if people hate on you or... Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good sign you're doing something good.
Drake said, if you don't have haters, you ain't popping. So I was like, it's funny. For 3 years, like in 2020, when COVID came, I was like, oh, I'm going to retire and take a break a little bit from personal branding. I'd been doing it since 2009. So I stopped posting. I would post like once a month. People forget you quick. That's a good and bad news about the world, no matter how important you think. If they stop seeing your face, they'll forget you. So I kind of was like, let me become more forgotten. And guess what? No haters. But also not as much money from my personal brand. So it's like, do you want to make money or do you want to have complete peace? Probably the best thing to do is what Conor McGregor, the mixed martial art guy, said. He said, get in, get rich, get out. That's a good thing to do. He got in. Nobody knew who he was. He became a fighter, made a tequila brand, made $500 million, retired. Smart plan.
Wow.
Move to Norway. Get a cabin in Tromsø. My cousin, she's one of the top soccer players, female soccer players, and she played in Tromsø.
Oh.
She was drafted she played university in California, and then she was drafted by an American team, but then she wanted to play overseas, so she ended up in Tromsø. She's like, I love Norway, but she got super depressed in the winter. She's like, it's too dark there.
It's too dark.
Tromsø. So now she plays, so she goes, next team, we'll be in the sunniest place in the world. So she ended up on the Mexico national team. So she liked Norway, though, but a little too dark. She was born in California. If you're born in California and then you move to Norway in the winter, you're like, I think something broke in the world. The sun broke. So,
Oh, that's a good story. But Ty, you are one of the guys that are really pushing. You're pushing yourself. You're pushing your team forward every single day. And I see so many people that living the same day over and over and over again in the side of the inside of the comfort zone. And what would Ty do if you were in a little box now, in trying to get out of the box of the system you're in, repeating this last 10 years over and over?
Yeah.
What can people, if they want to get a punch from you, to get out of the comfortable zone, move out there, try new things, be inspired by you? You do this every single day. You're more comfortable outside the comfort zone. So
Yeah.
what kind of tips do you have for people that are listening now to break out of their own patterns? I mean, if the pattern's been the same over and over and over again.
That's a good question. I would probably start by saying you should only be afraid of one thing. That's living a shitty life. So change your fear. Most people's fear is directed at the wrong thing. They're like, well, what if I start a business and it fails? Well, in general, you don't fail. When you're 100 years old, Jeff Bezos calls this the regret test. At age 100, will you regret having tried to build your own company? Probably not. Will you regret having not started it, being fearful? Yes. Most of people's regrets are the things they did not do. Sometimes, if you take heroin and you become a heroin addict, that you'll regret something you did. Okay? But for most people, it's actually interesting to study people who live to 100 years old. My grandma lived to 102. By the way, I took her to Oslo. My grandma loved Norway.
Wow.
She was a big fan of Norway because Norway, she's German, and Norway fought off the Germans, the Nazis.
True.
And Sweden had a truce. So she's like, I don't know what I think about Sweden. Denmark fought for 3 hours. She's like, okay, Denmark fought. But Norway fought for a long time, like 3 months, which is pretty good when you're a little country. I took her to Oslo, and she loved it. She actually, until she died, her favorite outfit was she bought a hat and a native, like Sami, how do you say it? Sami, who lives in the north?
Sama.
Yeah. She had like a necklace. She was an anthropologist, so she was like, I like Norway. So she's 102. And I did a podcast when she was 100 because I was like, man, she lived through a lot. She came to America when she was 21 in 1939. She knew nobody. She had one person she'd ever met from America. All her family stayed in Germany, stayed comfortable. And my grandma met Adolf Hitler at a little rally in 1936. There's a book written by a woman named Melita Meshman, who was my grandma's best friend. She wrote a book. She made in memory of my grandma, Marianne. And so my grandma in 1936 was at this little 50-person thing, and she met Adolf Hitler, heard him talking. He pulled up in a park in a car with the convertible. And I said, Grandma, what'd you think of him? She goes, I did not like him. I said, why? He's like, he was always screaming. My grandma didn't like loud people. Sometimes she would say, Todd, you talk too much. So my grandma, I'm very American, but so my grandma, imagine, I don't talk as much as Adolf Hitler. His guy would scream about everything. So she's like, I told my parents, she was only, 1936, she was 18 years old. She was born in 1918. She told my parents, I think this guy's going to start a war. We should leave Germany. No one listened to her. Her dad, my great-grandpa, was a doctor, and her mom had been in Prussia. They were Prussian. They'd been in Berlin for like 500 years. They're like, we're not going to leave here. So come 3 years later, my grandma goes, I got to go. And so she had the courage to leave. She got on a boat. While she was between Europe and America, Hitler invaded Poland and World War II started. So my grandma was right. Anyway, in this podcast that I did before she died in 2020, I took her to Norway in 2017, I think, or 2016. And I said, Grandma, when you were coming to America, I said, what was the greatest day of your life? She said, when I saw the Statue of Liberty in America.
Wow.
I went, why is that? She said, because I was starting my life over. And I said, how did you feel when you saw the Statue of Liberty and you came to America? Knowing nobody, she had like $100, she said, in her pocket. She said, I was so excited. And what I learned from that, from somebody who's 100 years old, is when you get out of your comfort zone and you look back on your life, the day you left your comfort zone will be the most exciting day of your life. So stop being so fearful. Live a life where you won't regret, where you won't be 100 years old and go, what if I had just had a little more courage? So, you know, my grandma's really the person that I admire the most. Of all the people I've met, my grandma really, I think I have the highest admiration for her. Obviously, you know, she's my own grandma, but just for having the courage to do that. So if you're in your comfort zone, get more courageous.
Wow, thank you for sharing amazing stories, Ty. And now I want you to tell all of the listeners now, how can they reach out to you if they want to learn stuff, growing? I mean, you're sharing so much valuable content every single day. I mean, you all should follow Ty Lopez and all the channels. Just tap into Ty. Okay. Totally. And how can they reach out to you if they want to access your program? Or we will share some links in the podcast as well, because I really want people to see how much you can basically have so much knowledge. And I mean, how can people tap into this?
Probably the best. I'll tell you what I'll do. Some of the links and books that I mentioned, if you direct message me on Instagram, just direct message me the word Charles.
Yeah.
I'll have me or my team will direct message you back with a link to like my free book page where I recommend different books. So just follow me at Ty Lopez on Instagram. It's a verified Instagram. It also has I have the Norwegian flag in my bio.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I got the Swedish one, the Norway, Denmark, US. So just follow me at Ty Lopez and then send me a direct message on Instagram, Charles, and I'll send you back some free links to the stuff that I do on that I mentioned on this podcast.
And I will also add the link in.
Just tell people to message me on Charles. Yeah. We can message them.
I just want to say thank you so much for tapping into this world. It was an honor to have you on the show.
Yes. I know a few words in Norwegian.
Yeah, can you hear it?
Let's see. Janteloven.
Yes, that's the law we have.
That means don't be too cocky. Americans, when I come to Scandinavia, I try to live more janteloven. Beverly Hills is the opposite of janteloven. Means be humble, don't put yourself, don't show off, and things like that. I like that about Norway.
If you invite me to your party, you
can come.
I come. I'm
it's
coming.
It's not going to be janteloven though.
It's not. No. We're living outside that in Norway.
Yes. Yeah. You come to America when you want to be cocky. Come to Scandinavia when you want to be more humble.
Janteloven, then I wouldn't be sitting here with you. I believe everything is possible.
That's right.
That's well. Okay. Thank you so much, Ty.
Thank you.
And have a good trip back. And let's make this episode go viral. Thank you so much.
Let's do it. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode with Ty. And a lot of valuable information. And please tap into Ty's accounts all over. And let's inspire the world. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.